Order. In accordance with the resolution of the House, business is interrupted for the presentation of the valedictory speech by the member for Murray. I call the member for Murray.
Thank you very much, Mr Deputy Speaker. I take this opportunity to make my final contribution to the New South Wales Parliament after almost 19 years in this place. Can I firstly thank, and of course this always involves thank yous to the many people who support you personally and professionally throughout any job, but particularly in this job. And the first person that I want to thank is my wife, Sonia. Partners are sometimes the last person thanked, but on this occasion I want her to be the first and the last person, because all of our partners put up with a great deal. We come in here, we know what to expect, we signed up for it, but our partners haven't. And I think often partners are much less prepared for the downs of political life than we are who choose to be part of it. In fact, last week my wife Sonia went to a shop in Griffith, and she went in and the person at the shop said, "Oh, look, isn't it wonderful, Adrian's decided to retire, and you know, he's done a great job over 20 years, and etc. etc." And she was fortunately gushing to my wife about my performance as the local member, and said, "Look, isn't it great that he's putting his family first?" And Sonia said, "Oh yes, that's lovely." And Sonia came home to me and said, "I'm the one who had to put the family first for the last 10 years." She said, "I went in here and they were talking about you as the gushing about you." She said, "But you know, it is family that puts up with a lot." And I really want to thank Sonia and my two children, Finn and Jasper. Jasper was born a few months before I became minister, and has only known me really as an absent father. So it's a great opportunity now for me to spend more time with those people who are most special to me. Of course, I want to thank my mother, my recently departed father, who would have loved to have been here, I must say, to my sister Louisa and her partner Tony, to my brother Dino and his partner Jackie, to my mother-in-law Louisa and Walter, who've always been very supportive of me. To the National Party, if my name had been on the call flute in 1999 as Adrian Piccoli, without the National Party, I certainly wouldn't be here, and I really want to acknowledge the party and what it's done for me, both at a grassroots and at a party level. Those state directors, Ben Franklin, Nathan Quigley, the chairs of the party, Christine Ferguson, Noel Blair, who had the pleasure of signing up to the National Party, who went on to greater things, and he's still doing great things, and to Bede Burke, the current chairman of the party. And of course, with all of us, it's local supporters, whether you're in a party or not. And I want to thank Margaret Fulton and her deceased husband, John Fulton, great supporters in Leeton, Joan Douglas from Deniliquin, Helen Dickey from Berrigan, Louis Zafina from Euston, in the west of the electorate of Murray, to John Catanak from Carrathool, Austin Evans from Colliambley, Jenny Hawkins, who unfortunately passed away from Finley, who was a great supporter and a great friend, Morna Knight from Narandra, and those who supported me strongly when I was first elected, so Jock Donaldson, Michael O'Mara, John Benetti, Marge Evans, Peter Sparks, the former member for Murray, Jim Small and his wife Judy, Adrian Cruikshank, the former member for Murrumbidgee, Noel Hicks, who gave me the advice that politics is a tough business, but make sure at the end of it the ups have outweighed the downs. To Phyllis Jones from Hay, and people like David Houston, also from Hay, great supporters. And as we all know, you can't survive in this job without great electorate staff. Lynn Sparks, who had been my electorate officer for about 16 years, and prior to that, the member for the previous member, Adrian Cruikshank, and still back when Kim Fisher was the state member for Sturt. So she certainly worked for a long time. She retired about 5 or 6 years ago, does a day or so in my electorate still. So thank you very much to Lynn for your long service, not to me, but to the people of our electorate. To Jan Casagrande, to Karen Giovanazzo, to Sally Brown, who's also been there for a very long time, to Kim Burgess, the senior electorate officer in my office at the moment, and Megan, who's there at the moment doing some work for a couple of months. They do so much of the work that is unseen in electorate offices. I'm sure we've all experienced somebody stopping you in the street, thanking you for something that you've done and have no idea what it is because your electorate staff have actually done it. But, you know, we all smile and say, no worries, any time. We take all the credit for it, don't worry about that. But there was a time when, and you get all kinds of crazy requests. My office in Griffith had a call from an elderly lady in Deniliquin, 200 kilometres away, because she had a dead cat under her house, and the cat was starting to stink. And she'd rung the council, it wasn't their responsibility, it rung various other people, and it wasn't their responsibility either. So she rang our office, and again, it had nothing to do with me, my electorate staff, through the connections that they all make within our communities, got that problem solved and got that cat removed. You know, a funny story, but it actually meant a lot for one individual person, an elderly resident of that town. And again, it's the personal stories. When people ask me what's the greatest achievement, I don't know that it's one. It's all of those things that you get to do for individuals. There was a fellow from Colliambly who rang me and said, my brother, he's having serious mental health issues. He's not a risk to himself or others, so they won't schedule him to Wagga, and he sleeps in the back of the ute. And we need to do something for him. And again, through our connections, I rang a friend who's a GP, got him in. They ended up getting him some treatment in Wagga. And about 6 months later, I walked out of a restaurant in Griffith, and this young man chased me out, and he said, I'm the brother that rang you. And he said, in there is my brother who was sleeping in the back of that ute, having dinner with our family. And he said, I just wanted to thank you for what you did. And, you know, you can spend millions and billions and do all kinds of things, but it's the impact you make on individual lives as a Member of Parliament, I think, that makes this job the most satisfying. Can I also thank the staff and all of the Members of Parliament who've made this an enjoyable place to work. I've calculated 1,300 Rex and Hazelton flights in my 19 years, and for those who enjoy a Saab 340, no one's putting their hand up. It's those who enjoy flying on those aircraft, 1,300 flights is a lot. To Barry O'Farrell and Andrew Stone, I want to pay particular regard to. Opposition is difficult, as I'm sure the opposition appreciates, and really that time in opposition in the lead up to the 2011 election for the coalition was a difficult time, a time that required great discipline, and Barry and Andrew, with limited resources that you have in opposition, don't think we're going to give you any more, but I'm not that sorry. The limited resources that we had, they did a great deal of hard work to get the coalition elected to government. So I really want to pay my regards to Barry and to Andrew, and to Barry. You know, he's a great leader in tough times, and I personally want to thank him. I mean, he backed me when we had to make some pretty tough budget decisions in education. He backed in the Gonski reforms, where the government, all the ministers in the government at the time had to make tough decisions in their own portfolios to fund an important reform that is going to and has already changed the lives of so many children in this state. To Mike Baird, my great friend, I pay my regards to him as well. Came through a tough election in 2015 as well, and I recall a time in the lead up to that election where we had money in capital works for schools that we were using to upgrade the front of some of the schools that looked very ordinary, some of the public schools. And the decision about the schools was made completely objectively. So there were projects in safe Labor season. And as always happens with these kinds of things, the question was raised about, you know, why are we spending money in safe Labor seats? And to Mike Baird's eternal credit, he said, we are not that government, and we didn't change a single decision that we'd proposed to make. To Troy, my good friend, integrity is the word that comes to mind. Troy, for those who don't know, apart from his role here in Parliament, but he was the investigator of a priest who had committed various child sex offences in the Hunter region when he was a police officer. And it was one of the things that triggered the Special Commission of Inquiry into the Hunter Catholic Church. and then all of the things that have flowed from that. And I remember Troy rang me one time, and he'd only been in Parliament for not long, and said, "Look, Lateline want me to speak about the Special Commission and this issue." And he said, "Look, I'm a member of Parliament now. I don't know what I should do." And I said, "You have a responsibility that when people are listening, you have a responsibility to speak." And he did speak on Lateline, and he did speak out about his experiences and what happened there. And that was one of the triggers that led to the special inquiry, which then led to the Royal Commission that is conducting that critical work for this country at the moment. So, Troy, you're a great friend and remain so. To Niall, a new deputy, as I said, I signed him up for the National Party, standing on a bridge not far from Yanco many years ago. I'd also like to thank the Labor Party for always treating me with respect, both in opposition in government, particularly as a minister. There was a time there when I defended one of our colleagues, not a Labor colleague, but one of our colleagues, from very unfair treatment, and his partner. And I want to thank the Labor Party when I was the victim of the blowback, where the Labor Party had the opportunity to pile on top of me, and they chose not to, and I really appreciated that, and I know my wife and family appreciate that as well. And to Gladys and to John, I wish you all the very best. This government does deserve to get re-elected at the next election because of the great work that we've been doing. We're a great government, not a perfect one, but I know in my part of the world we need you to win the next election and win it well. The next stage for me, the University of New South Wales is setting up an education institute for which I'll be the director, and one of those conditions of that was that I'd be based in Griffith, because one of the key bits of work it's going to do is work around the gap between rural and remote students and metropolitan students, not just in Australia but indeed around the world. It's been a key passion of mine, and this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And I apologise for causing a by-election. I know it's inconvenient. I know it's inconvenient for the electorate, but this is an opportunity for me to continue to make a contribution to public life in something that I feel incredibly strongly about. I'm also a nominated board member of the Open Society Foundation's Global Education Advisory Board, which is based in both New York and Budapest. So it's an opportunity for me to also make a contribution to education, particularly around access and openness and accountability of education, things like academic freedoms for university academics, to allow me to make a contribution in education in a broader way than just in Australia, and that's a great opportunity for me as well. And I also have I've signed a contract with HarperCollins to write a book. None of you get a mention, but a book explaining schools to parents. And I've got to say, as a parent, I walked into my first parent-teacher interview when I'd been a minister for 3 years, and I didn't know what to ask. And I thought, well, there must be lots of parents out there who don't know what to ask in a parent-teacher interview, don't know exactly what NAPLAN means, all of those kinds of things. So it's an opportunity for me. It can be interesting, never having written a book before, but again, hopefully I can make a contribution to parents' better understanding of actually what questions they should ask and what they do need to know in order to support their children in education. In terms of the electorate, I won't go through a list of all of the things that have been done in my electorate. I'll refer you to my website, is usually the thing you do, except for a couple of things. Bridget Moama, I've been talking about it for 50 years, and as a government we're delivering it. The new hospital, I thank Gladys and the Minister for Health, a commitment to building a new hospital in Griffith. Two projects that have been are well overdue, been asked for a long time, and this government is delivering them. Water remains a very big issue and a very contentious issue and a critical issue to my electorate, something that we continue to advocate about. We've got a strong economy, and in our electorate we've never seen so much money as we have, especially in the last 3 years. But I want to just finish by passing on what I think are a few things I've learned over the 19 years I've been here. I guess there's no point learning if you don't have the opportunity to pass it on. Don't take the advice if you don't want. But the first thing I would say is always put your family first. I mean, this Parliament has a history of broken marriages, where the strains and stresses of this job have led to the decay and ultimate breakdown of relationships. And this place is in no way worth the end of a relationship with any member of your family, whether it be your partner or anybody else. Secondly, I'd say if you're young and you come in here, be patient. What New South Wales needs and what Parliament needs are people who've got experience in Parliament, in legislating, experience in governing, experience in representing an electorate, so that when you come, what you've got when you're young is time, and you need to use that asset because we do need people with great depth and great experience leading this state. The third thing is that this is a leadership chamber and not an echo chamber. Make sure you say what you think, otherwise you'll regret it, I think, when you leave. Make sure you say what you think, not what other people think. I think that's been my proudest achievement, to come and say sometimes things that are controversial, that have caused me subsequently a lot of grief, but every single moment of that has been worth it. The fourth thing is, I think you only need two senses to be in here. One is a sense of perspective. We're not as important as we sometimes think we are, and then I think often we are much more important than we think we are. And people in our communities, as much as they might criticise us at times, have elected us and treat us as their own, and they think that we are an important part of that community. But the second sense is a sense of humour. And I think whatever we might say in here, I think the most effective rhetoric is one that is tinged with humour. And we walk out of here knowing that we're all actually just trying to get to the same place in a slightly different way. The fifth thing I'd say is I think you have a responsibility to shape your party. Don't let the party shape you. You come into a party, and I think you have a responsibility to try and shape the direction your party goes in, not to come in and say, I must have this position because this is the position of my party. The sixth thing I'd say is think in the grey. I always envy people who think in black and white. I got this email from a guy when there was the stem cell legislation here 6 or 7 years ago, and he was absolutely black and white about it. No way. And I thought, wow, I'm so envy that. It's so easy to think in black and white, right? But what do you do when the guy comes up with a wheelchair and says, you know what, stem cell research could make me walk again? Or the parent that comes up and says, my daughter's got type 1 diabetes, a diabetes pump for the rest of their life with all of the associated health challenges, to not be able to say, you can't say no. I won't even consider what that kind of therapy might lead to. So I think it's absolutely critical to be sceptical of your party, sceptical of your church, sceptical of your own ideology, and I think that's where you make the greatest contribution here. And don't give your power away. Don't give your power away. Alan Jones, he's a great, he mentions me a lot, not necessarily in favourable terms, but I remember I've been the minister for 6 months, and there was the issue of Gosford Public School. And the previous government and Minister Firth had made this decision to move it. It's in the CBD, to move it next to, I think, Kendall High School. And there was lots of consternation about it. And we said in the lead up to the election, we'll review it. And we did. I went up there, had a look, got the advice from the department, spoke to locals. There were some challenges with parking, various other things, but it was the right decision to make, and we backed in the previous government's decision. Alan Jones, I remember standing at the airport in Griffith. It was freezing cold, 6 o'clock in the morning, on the phone with Alan Jones, and him, doing what he does. And every allegation he made to me, I was able to respond to, and then he would move on. And at the end, he said, "But Minister, you've got to promise me one thing, and that is that you will review this decision." And I said, "No." And well, then he launched into this tirade, and he said, "You're worse than Clover Moore." And I thought, if that's the best he could do, I actually don't mind Clover. If that's the worst he could do, yeah, Clover might mind. But if that's the worst he could do, I thought not too bad. But more importantly, when I came back to the office that day and saw some people at the department, I learned something that I didn't know at the time, and that is that people, when you're a minister, people in the department listen to what you say and take a steer of what sort of minister you are and what sort of leader you are by the way you respond to pressure. And they said, had you said, yes, we'll review it, it would have shaped the way they would provide advice to me, knowing that the minute I get a bit of the hard word put on me, I'll change my mind. I didn't know it at the time, but I'm glad I answered no, despite whatever Alan Jones might have said subsequently about me. But I think it's really important that we don't pour our power onto the ground like that. and hand it over to other people like Alan Jones every time they put the hard word on you. And finally, I'd say measure your success by who your enemies and who your friends are. I mean, I list my enemies as Alan Jones, Miranda Devine, Mark Latham, Ray Hadley, but I name my friends as Deirdre Kennedy from Walgett, an Aboriginal lady who taught my children how to make Johnny cakes. Thomas George, the member for Lismore, who I came in here with 19 years ago. Phyllis Jones, truckie from Hay, Jude Heyman, the principal at Griffith Public School. David Gonski, Bishop Peter Comensoli, Jihad Dib, who I've had the pleasure of getting to know. Ben Denkert, a timber cutter from Mathara. Henry Regender, a union organiser in Western Sydney. Ashley Haynes, a butcher from Finley. I was going to call him the best butcher from Finley, but there's 2 butchers in Finley, and I just, politically, I just can't say that. Right? Pat Fogarty, one of the councillors from Deniliquin, and I tell you what, I'll put my friends up any day against those enemies that I've made over this period of time. And when I think about that advice that Noel Hicks gave me about the ups and downs, I can confidently say the ups have well and truly outweighed the downs. But it is time to go, and as I said at the beginning, I'll thank Sonia at the beginning, I'll thank her at the end. They put up with a lot and often put on a very brave face when they see you to hide their own anguish about how they feel, sometimes about how they get treated, but particularly the anguish they feel for you. And I want to thank Sonia, but when I thank Sonia, I want to thank the partners of and family of every Member of Parliament here for what they have to put up with, whilst we do what we can to make this state a better place. And in that regard, I hope I've played my small part. Thank you.
Adrian, I'm sure that every member of not only this Parliament, but the Parliaments previous to this, would want to wish you well, and Sonia and the 2 boys, all the very best in the future, and may you be blessed with plenty of health, plenty of good health, and plenty of happiness. Thank you.
Seriously.
Thanks, mate. No, deliberately. You've got even worth a mention.
Just sitting with you on the bench.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks,
There's a lot on tomorrow. It's very good. Like bucket loads. So I voted like 1,000 new electors.
Thank you.
I don't want to go for a horse, but I'll give you that. All right, see you later.
All right, thank you. Thanks. Thanks. Put your spaghetti in my plate, mate. Oh, yeah. Thomas. Next, I'll just say congratulations.
Order. Thank you to the friends of Adrian in the gallery too. Greatly appreciate it. I know he would do appreciate that. Welcome back.